Now we will proceed with session 4, which is on rural futures, conservation and nature tourism, or conservation tourism. This session will focus on how rich biocultural heritage and conservation efforts with the aid of adventure and wildlife tourism can be combined to protect said heritage, generate employment, raise awareness, and alternate sources of revenue. This session is going to be chaired by Mr. Bittu Sehgal and Dr. Sunita Pradhan. A brief biography on Mr. Bittu Sehgal, who is an environmental activist, a writer, and founding editor of the wildlife and ecology magazine, Sanctuary Asia. He's also a member of the National Board for Wildlife under the Ministry of Environment and Forest. And Dr. Sunita Pradhan, who works with ATRI, Eastern Himalaya, Northeastern India Regional Office. She's a doctorate in wildlife ecology, and she has spent more than 18 years working in the Darjeeling, Sikkim, Himalayan region. And her present projects focuses on socio-ecological interactions on human-wildlife interfaces. Please welcome them to the platform.
Okay, here's what we've decided to do. Could all the speakers please come up? Could all the speakers please come up? We'll read out your name. And then, in the process of talking, you can introduce yourself in one line. Most people have already been introduced. But to start with, we want the speed talk. So, Harry, would you come up and introduce yourself? After that will be Tenzin. Okay. So you've got a speed talk going. Tenzin, where are you? You're here? Tenzin, yeah. Okay.
So, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me today. Just a few words. I'm from Japan. As you know, the Japanese population is declining, whereas the Indian population is increasing. The birth rate in India is currently 2.3, in Japan is 1.2 or something like that. Japan had a very long period of economic expansion, but still it's not growing now. So during the economic expansion, there's a lot of problems in pollution, but now pollution has improved in Japan. And actually there is ecotourism, which is happening quite significant in Japan, and which happened actually in the 1990s. In 2007, there was a law to improve ecotourism. So now India is obviously, this population is growing, economy is booming. There's obviously many problems that India is facing right now, but I think India can learn a lot from Japan. I think that it'll be exciting to see what kind of dialogue that Japan and India can have to be able to learn from each other. Thank you.
Wonderful. Tenzin?
Yes.
Would you introduce yourself in a line or two? So that,
yes, sir. Last 10 years, I'm running a small organic farm in my small village. Actually, I was not interested in to become a farmer like my father or like my grandfather. My grandfather was a farmer, even my father was a farmer, even myself, now a small organic farmer. So I was 13 years in Malaysian construction company. So my mom is calling back me in my small village, and she told me that your sister is grow up, so you have to come back in village. So I coming back to the village, and when I came back, I was not interested to growing and doing the farming. But slowly, I thought that really I have to do something in my village. So I studied, so tea was the major business in our past. So many people was growing tea in our land. So Assam is known as a tea land. So I decided to grow the tea. It was very difficult for me to recognize 32 varieties of the tea plant. And each plant have a different character, different flavor, different taste. And Mom and myself, we decide to start from nursery, from nursery. Then we decided to learn how to grow, how to start farming. And when we start to growing, and some expert from big companies, tea company, they advise us to grow very nicely and how to grow the tea. And when we start to growing the tea, and some expert advise us to use the highly chemical fertilizer and pesticide in our field. It was great shock to me. Whenever I was using chemical fertilizer in my field, I was have a rabbit, and rabbit was died. And I was having some small pond near my farm, and whenever I was cleaning my spray machine water, and all the fishes was die. And I feel that it's very dangerous poison, so I cannot use this poison. So I have to find out the alternate way of how to grow the tea, how I can feed the people with, the poison cup of tea. First of all, people are honoring with the glass of water, then offering the cup of tea. I cannot feed the people poison. So I stopped using the chemical fertilizer and pesticide in my field. When I started searching different idea how to grow, the organic word was absent from my mind. But whenever I start, I heard that Dr. L. Naran Reddy from Bangalore, he is growing the organic. I got in the Google, I found him. So I visit his farm, and he shared some small idea. And I connected with the Fertile Ground Canadian NGO, Fertile Ground, and I invited them in my farm, then how to grow the organic, how to improve the soil fertility. I asked them, and they helped me a lot in growing organic. Now I slowly, everything is the local input. I never buy anything from the market, like how to improve the soil fertility, and from dead soil or sandy soil, how to convert into the good soil. We slowly now making all own, the compost, like compost pile or pest control, natural pest control, everything. And we slowly set up a small tea factory in our land. And we are selling our product in Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Germany, USA, Canada, and different part in the global markets. It was the big challenging for us. And when I started growing, I grow a different varieties of plants in my farm. I have a guava, I have a pomegranate, mango, jackfruit, even different, more than the hundreds plants in my farm. Many different type of bird, animal, and they love to come in my farm. Even wild elephant, deer, peacock. I have a buffer zone 30 to 40 hectares, and 13.5 hectares is tea land, and 30 hectares is the jungle into Bhutan border. And many different type of wild bird, wild animals came in my garden, and they are staying very happily. They're happy to come in my garden. So, and 2 years has been passed that last year, this organization from WFE, this is Wildlife Friendly Enterprise Network, and that given me the certified my farm as a world first elephant friendly certified. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Can we have the speakers up here? Belinda, please. And while you're coming up, I'll just say she's been an environmental fighter, a wildlife fighter for a long time. Belinda, come straight away. Okentayan, you here? Please come. From Abor country, travels. You will, I'm not introducing you more. When you speak, you'll do that, all right? Sentila Younger, please come up. Devraj Barua. Okay.
Not there, I think.
Devraj Barua not here? I'm here. Oh, you're here. Is the Sentinel not here? Okay, sorry. Janabi Pukan and Mervyn Cotino. Come. So here's how we'll do this.
Yeah.
I will really be doing a speed introduction to this, and then I will pass it on to the co-chair, after which we shall introduce ourselves, and the subject that we are discussing right now is using tourism to fuel conservation efforts and enhance public awareness. And the dialogue is supposed to be leveraging the traditional connect in tourism. How will mindful conservation tourism work, and who will benefit? So here's the situation. Blue, you've been working at protecting Kanha now for 35 years or thereabouts or more. So what happens is that a whole chain of people starting from way back have been protecting certain areas, and protecting from what? It was initially supposedly from poachers and woodcutters and stuff like that, but actually they were also protected from mines, from dams, from quarrying, from chemical factories, etc. So you got these little small oases that were not devastated. The result was a lot of biodiversity. People are curious, so people started coming to just to watch what the world was like before we began to destroy it. Now, at this point, we welcomed tourism, but what we found then was that after a whole lot of people had gotten together and protected, this was forest officers, this was wildlifers, this was scientists, this was institutions, the Bombay Natural History Society, WWF, everybody got together. Having protected this, we found helicopter investors coming. I'm a Punjabi, so I can say it. So some fat Punjabi contractor comes down, puts some cement down and starts earning a fortune out of that. Neither the benefits went to wildlife, nor did the benefits go to the community. So we're sitting over here in a situation where tourism, admittedly one of the largest employers in the world per dollar invested, has the potential to become a huge conservation tool, but perhaps precisely the wrong kind of tourism, with a few exceptions here and there, is the order of the day. We're trying to change that. Before I pass it on to my co-chair, I will say this, that we have something called the Cocoon Conservancy concept. That's a Sanctuary Nature Foundation. What we're saying is these should be community-owned, community-operated nature conservancies. People should not be distanced or alienated from their land, and the lands which were carved out of forests after 3-4 seasons, the fertility went away, so pesticides, fertilizers began to be used. Then it wasn't just elephants and wild boar, it was also grasshoppers and beetles, so they had to buy much more investment than they could afford. And today, in an era of climate change, here is what's happening to the communities around these protected areas. Even if they somehow manage to grow a little bit of food, in Vidarbha, something like 2 years ago, it hailed 15 days before harvest. We had something like 30 to 40 people who committed suicide. So in this circumstance, what we are advocating right now is that the bridge between communities and wildlife people should be built based on the fact that communities must become the primary beneficiaries of a return to biodiversity. If we want that to happen, there are no two ways. Guns and guards alone won't work. You may need that to prevent a Sansarchan from coming in, or his son. But what we have to do is to work together, that's people who are working for human beings and human rights and social upliftment, and create social upliftment programs whose byproduct is enhanced biodiversity in a ring around the protected areas where we still have biodiversity left. If these people become the primary beneficiaries of investments on protection and investments and the profits that come out, the chances are that in Hindi they would say ki Yamdut, which is the Grim Reaper, instead of being the Grim Reaper, the tiger becomes an Annadata. He becomes like the giver, like, what's the word for it? What would you use? You get the idea. So if we can change that relationship, then all the old things come back, which is to say people learn to live with their land, etc., etc., etc. So this is what we're hoping to do. We do know that you will not get villagers who will be able to, let's say, attract high value customers. You will need people to sit down there inside their land, inside their buildings, inside their vehicles, people who know how to welcome people and how to deal with them. But that partnership must be such where the local community is the owner and the beneficiary. Would you like to?
Add?
Yeah, or take forward. Yeah?
Okay.
You on?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. So you've almost said what I wanted to say.
That's good, we're two co-chairs.
So
Wonderful.
yeah, but I just wanted to add one thing which I've experienced myself, and I've seen it myself while in the field. and that is in the context of building tourism as an alternate source of revenue, you know, like alternate livelihood, which we are really pinning our hope on, and sort of looking into tourism and pinning our hope on tourism as a conservation strategy, as a conservation and the economic benefits as the as a conservation initiative, for conservation initiative. I just wanted to add one thing, is tourism actually, because I've seen this, I've noticed this, and I've experienced this, is tourism is a very dynamic and sensitive livelihood. It's very sensitive to any type of changes and risks, especially political unrest, which we've recently experienced, or any kind of market demand, any kind of competitions, you know. So, so this renders tourism as a very volatile livelihood, very, very volatile livelihood. And I've seen this, and I've also had a community member say that, you know, if we don't have tourists, we have the forests. So that means if we don't have tourism, we'll go back to the forest. So, you know, this sort of dilutes the real objective of ecotourism in a protected area, especially in those very remote and high altitude protected areas that we work in. And so I think this calls for, so if there is any sort of downturn in visitation by the tourist, so this, I mean, you know, this could be a potential threat emanating from tourism, and this has to be looked into and has to go into planning proactively and as a precautionary measure. I think this is quite important. Yes. So.
Thank you. So, Belinda, would you like to start the process?
Well, I think this is it's got complex because there's such different types of people. There are conservationists involved in wildlife tourism. There are businessmen involved. There are people trying to turn black money into white money. I mean, there's a whole huge umbrella of people. So it's pretty difficult to change. It will happen, but I think we have to do something else first. It'll be difficult to change what's in existence now without using a huge stick. And a lot of local people are benefiting from tourism, but it's not the right formula, if that makes sense. And the other really interesting thing, which which for me is a bit of a dilemma, is that the courts have said only 20% of our national parks and tiger reserves can be used for tourism. But because the focus is on that 20% and the management focus as well, that is where all the high densities of wildlife are. And so when you go into the other 80% of the park, it's not that the animals are shy, they're just not there in the density of the tourism area. So some people would say, well, you know, let's get the courts or whatever change their mind, open up more areas and have, but I'm not sure that that's quite the right thing to do either. There's got to be, we've got to find a middle ground. But recently there was a very, very interesting study which was released about 5 days ago. I don't know how many of you have seen it. That was done by Dr. Raghu Chundawat. And he looked at 4 tiger reserves in Madhya Pradesh, and he looked at the socio-economic benefits and negative, positive, and so on. It is really, really extraordinary. It's available online now, and you really should read it if anybody interested even vaguely in this subject. But he found extraordinary figures of funds going back into the communities in some way or other. And what both after much discussion and a couple of meetings and things, what both he really, the figures he's extrapolated and things out of this study are extraordinary. What we both believe is that what should be encouraged is a completely new, go to areas, even areas which are not forest, not wildlife areas, wasteland type, and do get people to do a long-term investment there for say 10 years, where the land still belongs to the people are involved, and people should not expect any returns for at least 10 years. But in 10 years, we have such a wonderful country, and most of it is still, it's so fertile. If you protect nature, nature always gives back. So within 10 years, you can produce land. Say if you had a whole lot of groups, you'd have a very, very large area where you can then have exclusive tourism if you want. So you have a very gentle footstep. You can have tented camps or just one single camp, and have a lot of focus on walking, trekking, because you're unlikely to have for a long time any big dangerous animals. So you focus on other areas. The big dangerous animals will come, and then you evolve. And if a whole lot of people add on to this, both the local people and investors and tourism could benefit. So
Good.
that's
right.
about.
You want to add anything? Actually, Lou, well, she's going to call up the next lot of people, but
Yeah.
bird watchers outnumber tiger watchers by
Yes.
about 80 to 1.
Yes.
At a very conservative estimate. So the places that she's talking about, it seems to make sense to have local people become experts in their own backyards.
Can I say one
Yeah.
tiny thing I just thought? In central India at the moment, if any of you said, oh, I want to go and visit Kanha, Bandhavgarh, Pench, Tadoba, Panna, you cannot get an entry ticket into the park for the next 4 months. You can go in the buffer zone, you can go into some other areas, but the main part of the thing, not for 4 months. But we have visitors, and I actually I wasn't there when she was there, but there was a lady who just went down for 5 days. She never went into the park, but we devised a program for her, and she was just over the moon. She cried when she left. She walked, she looked at rivers, butterflies, birds, met villagers, sat down on the floor, learned how to make chapatis, whatever. And she had the experience of her lifetime without going once into the park. And we need to encourage people to do that. Sorry.
Good.
So I would call upon Sentila Younger. Sentila Younger?
No,
She's not there?
She's missing in action. Yeah.
Okay. Then I would also call
Oken is here.
Devraj.
No, Oken Tayang is here.
Okay, no. Now Devraj is there? Devraj?
Yeah, he's very
okay.
much here. He's right there.
Janvi? Khan?
She's there.
She's not there. And Merwin? Okay, so they're all
So,
there.
okay. You can.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I ask them some questions.
No, they can start. Yeah.
So I would request you, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Oken, to introduce yourself.
Hello everybody, my name is Oken Taing, and I am from Arunachal, the next state to the east from Assam. And I have a small company called Our Country Travels. And incidentally, I started my business with botanical tour, specifically people who came to see rhododendron flowers from Scotland. But now I have people from USA and France and also from Japan who come to see rhododendrons as well as things like blue poppies and other flowers. So that's my economics with nature, Naturenomics.
Yep.
And so coming to the theme of the session here, now what do the local people, the real guardian of the of our natural heritage, how do they benefit and how much are they involved? And this thing we've been talking about this for a long time, but on the ground, just like my friend Dr. Mao from Botanical Survey of India pointed out that, the local people, it doesn't really get to them to a substantial level. So, and also, the kind of interventions we're trying to make, we miss the point, we miss the target. So we need to take things which make sense to them. And even better, we should have them tell us what works for them instead of bringing in, all kind of great ideas which sometimes we ourselves don't understand and, they don't understand. For example, one of my trips with a group of Japanese who came to see rhododendron flowers. So it was in the blooming season, about July, in the month of July, really nice flowers, and they thought this was totally out of the world. And then we were like small children, all of them taking pictures of these flowers and everything. But at the end of the evening, the leader of the porters, he took us to his hut, and then for warmth in the evening, he was burning the rhododendron trees.
Ah.
So, and without a hot break, you cut it down every morning and then, make a fire. So how do we get him to stop and realize that, this can be something that will give you and your children livelihood in the future? So just one session in the hot and evening telling that, we'll come back next year, don't cut it down, it really doesn't work. You really have to make them understand and make them see that, this is something worth conserving, and give them a meaningful explanation. And most importantly, if you want them to stop doing this, what substitute do you provide them for, the firewood, for example, and they would even sell it as a firewood, these things, So we really have to reflect on this, and I think we are running short of time, so I stop here for the moment. Thank you.
That's really fantastic. Devraj, you'll be next. The situation is this for us. We're sitting here, we're discussing climate, we're discussing biodiversity, we're discussing tourism. The fact is we can build solar panels from here to the moon and do the same with windmills, but we're not going to bring a ton of carbon down with those. The only way we're going to bring carbon back down is to bring back the sponge that held the carbon. Wetlands, for instance, today, which are phenomenal birding spots, they hold as much carbon in their ooze as exists in the atmosphere today. So if you restore wetlands through tourism, what you're doing is you're a climate warrior. You're actually bringing the carbon back down, and you're giving livelihood, and you're boosting the economy. Now, we know this is a win-win-win-win, but is there enough common sense and enough unity between us to understand that if we stay united, the chances are that the carbon cowboys who are out there looking for oil, coal, gas could possibly be thwarted for a little while the world sort of comes back. Your mic, go on. Hello, Devraj, you can hear you. Yeah, now good.
Hi, so my name is Devraj Barua. I'm from this travel company called Chalo Hoppo. We've been babies. It's barely been 2 years that we've been around. And so our focus in terms of tourism is, as a geographical area, it's the Northeast. And what we can see is the tourism is becoming a very, very big thing in the Northeast. For a long time, it's always been, oh, but I don't know anything about the Northeast. I don't know how it's going to be. A lot of things came along with the Northeast, coming to the Northeast, right? But now that's not the problem anymore. Tourism is growing at a very, very fast rate. And in terms of the money coming in to tourism, to the Northeast because of tourism, I think that's happening. But at the cost of what? I think everybody wants a chunk of that pie. And like Belinda said, now there's a lot of people coming in. There are no places to stay. So what do you do about it? You build more houses. But I think the problem doesn't lie in the houses that we're building. I think it's about how we're going about this. who's looking into how this is happening? Are we throwing an RCC into beautiful villages? Which, for example, there's a small village, some of you all might know about it, some of you all might not. It's got the double-decker living root bridges in Cherrapunji.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful village. It's an absolutely beautiful village. 80% of the people who go there generally would go in the morning and come back by the evening. It's quite a tedious walk. What we like to make our people do is we like to make them stay there for at least a couple of days to experience the local culture. Not because you don't want to come in and see what you want to see. You want to come and see what you don't know. You want to come and learn more about the local communities, experience their way of life, not put in your opinion saying, hey, okay, maybe if you had an AC in this room, it would be better. And what's the problem is that the awareness in general is, I feel, lacking. So what's happening is the local will say, okay, hey, more people coming, I can make much more money, I'll sell my rooms at X the price, and I'll make my money. But no one's looking into how is it being made in a sustainable manner? Well, it's not happening. What's happening is they're just cutting down forests, ruining the area. It's like, what's happening is we are kind of ruining what we're looking for. We're looking for a more untouched space, we're looking for a more beautiful space, and there's always this conversation about how we're going to do this without completely ruining what we're looking for, right? So that's one aspect of what I feel. So I think what's really important is that people come, I don't know, either this is going to happen through, it's very hard to say that it's going to happen from a perspective of each travel company going to do this in an ethical and right manner, because realistically that's not going to happen. But it's about how we're going to move towards that. Is it going to be through support of the state or whatever it is? But I think we've reached a point where we really need to consider what we're doing to these things, because the money is there, but the money will ruin the place and the culture. It's not only about the nature of it. We're losing the culture of the place.
Quite right.
You're losing the culture of the place. You got to, when you're coming, it's not about a sightseeing holiday. For example, the whole charm of when you come, understand, interpret the culture of what is there. For example, you're sitting with a Monpa family in Dirang and learning how to make momos and thukpa with them, learning more about their culture. I think that's what is going to, because we need, from a travel company point of view, it's what awareness we can impart to our guests. That, you come, understand, respect, experience, and go back home, because what's home is home, what's here is here. And that should be understood, I feel.
I think that's beautifully put. Wonderful. Terrific. You're a good boy.
Thank you.
We'll listen to them, and then we'll come back to you later on again with 5 more questions. And now, who's there?
Mervin.
Mervin? Yeah, Mervin. Sorry.
Right there.
Very bad with me. Mervin, please do introduce yourself and let's know your point of view.
Yeah, sure. My name is Mervin Coutinho, and I'm the guy who everybody wants my kind of lifestyle. Leave your corporate jobs. Be on the road, live on the road, with no plans, no timeline, no destination. Okay, and that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years. Like, I really had no plans, or I had any kind of destination or anything to do, because I've been in the corporate world for about 20 years before I started this, and I realized, probably I need a change of lifestyle itself, where I don't have to think about money or any big goals or ideas or policies or conservation, for that matter. But my objective was just to be on the move. Okay. 7 years down the line, though I didn't have a plan, I've become a social entrepreneur. Today I am working with the energy sector, and accidentally I've gotten into tourism as well. I don't know how did that happen, but I think there is a gist of how it happened. Okay, I have this project called as the Batti project. That's how I sustain myself on the road. If people are thinking, how do I earn my living, if I have no plans or no money or something like that. So this journey over the years became a journey of sustainability. So while I was traveling throughout India on my motorbike for 2 years, I just picked up petty jobs, did like in a dhaba or a restaurant, did some writing job and earned my food and fuel so I can go to the next stop. But when I came to Northeast India, the game had to change because you cannot really get those kind of easy jobs where you can just like work and go. You can work in a farm, yeah, you can help families out and you can earn your food, though not money, okay? But then I realized I was useless with them. Their pace of working and their strength and their agility, it will take me like years to kind of master, and I will be more of a liability than an asset, okay? So I said, how do I do this, So I started, one fine day, I met a gentleman who was trying to bring light to his village, and he really didn't know how to go about it. He did a lot of study, he went and approached a lot of people, but no success. So we were talking about it, and he was saying, I need to light up 200 bulbs in my village. And I said, 200 bulbs doesn't sound too much. What is the challenge you have? He said, money and no expertise, okay. And I said, all right, I think since I come from the cities, I may be able to connect with some of my friends who kind of just blow up some money in a bar during the weekend. Probably they could like use one of those weekend money and we could help bring 200 bulbs in this village. So I put up a Facebook post and I said, it takes about 5,000 rupees to kind of light up a house. How many of you guys are in? And that's how I got the response. I got money for the first 7 houses. We went walking 2 days into the jungle and went to a village where they had never seen anybody like me, okay, because I had big eyes, according to them, and they didn't see anybody with big eyes. I was the first outsider from that tribe to visit that place. Many kids started to cry, who is this strange man with beard and big eyes coming here? Initially, they were a little hesitant about light because the idea of light also is very, very new to them. For them, light is when the sun goes up and you go to sleep when the sun goes down, okay? Yeah, but new things have started to come. We need to kind of expand a little more hours in the night so that we can wind up our work and all. That's the logic they gave for needing light. And that's how this project started. When I was coming back from that village, many people asked me, you went to that village, what about my village? When will I get light? So it became more like an obligation. Oh, lovely. Do I need to give light here? Oh, shit, what do I do? I really don't have a plan. I don't want to make a plan. What do I do? So I continued on this thought of, yeah, there is a need here, and there are people to reach out. So I said, okay, fine, that's a good format to kind of go about it. So I started to advertise on social media, lit up another 100 houses, okay. Then I went again to social media, and I was feeling a little bad, how many times will I kind of ask money from everybody, It kind of feels a little awkward because I don't believe in the concept of money, and I just don't want to kind of keep asking money for it. So we thought, why don't we do something very interesting, okay? Why don't we make people or local people earn that light that they want, okay? How can we make that happen? So we said, now anyways people are funding, okay? Now people anyways will fund, let's give them a reason and a motivation to come here and fund. So we started this idea, though Northeast is really beautiful and everybody really wants to come here. So we thought maybe a donors can come and experience the place, okay, and see what the region is that they are bringing light to, okay, at the same time immerse in their cultural activities and experience it themselves. But how do we do this, okay? Because we wanted it eco-friendly, we wanted like a lot of ideas were getting thrown up, like you don't have to bring in too much money, you don't bring too much capitalism and stuff like that. So we said, okay, fine, if at all I organize a tour, okay, the money will go to the tour operator, okay? What if I create or I build capabilities where the localites itself can become the tour operators or the people who will guide these guys inside? So we started a charity challenge called Right to Light, okay, where we take people who have a certain target to achieve online, where they can they can fundraise, and once they achieve their targets, they get to cycle into the eastern Himalayas, which I call the wild east, okay, for about 10 days, for 300 kilometers, and we will take care of the experience that way. And we started this pilot. So what happened was, we knew that we wanted to keep this sustainable. We cannot, like, make this happen 1 year and go ahead. And I didn't want to bring anybody from outside. So we brought one expert. We did the pilot. We started training the local folks on how do you address such a group, okay? We kind of, engaged people, because it's a lot of logistical thing to kind of organize such a tour over 300 kilometers where there is no infrastructure at all for accommodation, toilets and stuff for tourists to come in, okay? So how do we take care of that? So we started to kind of move like a caravan from one spot to the other spot. For all these 10 days, you camp, beautiful places on mountains, ridges, overlooking things. You're cycling throughout this thing. You're eating food at people's houses where this group of women have come together and they're cooking for you. So you get to taste their delicacies. And then you end up at a tribal festival where they all like celebrate together. So this is how it started. Now, what we realized is that Right to Light is becoming a channel, okay, for me to sustain Batti, because the money that is coming in, half of it goes into lighting and half of it goes in logistics. Okay, now the scale that we have, this is going to be my 3rd year in January that we'll conduct this 3rd edition. The scale that we have kind of generates about 15 lakh rupees for the local communities that way, where they're going, all the people who are helping us out, all the self-help groups, and also the money is coming down back to the people. Now, I heard earlier from ma'am that where there is no tourist, there is forest, and that is very true, because if you do not give them an alternative of some kind of income or empowerment, they will go back to the hunting and their traditional ways of doing it, which we have a problem with. But there is their own way of addressing that. Yeah.
So here we have it. Look, in this room there are enough people here who know not just what the problem is, and not just how to solve it, but actually are solving it. So here's a situation, Kamal, Ravi Singh was here. Yeah, just you two people between A3 and WWF, you could actually change the way tourism works in India in the simplest of simple ways. If I want to start a pawn shop in Dubai, I can't do that with a local partner. Why should there be a lodge that has no local partner? Now, who that partner is and how it is toggles into something which is the UNEP and the United Nations program now that's saying rewild, nature needs half. If the farms were taken from forests and the farms are not productive, then can the owners of that land bring them back to forest status and make that obligatory, that if you do have a lodge there, well, you're instead of being taxed, you're just being said, you support these 5 families or 8 families or howsoever it works, you guys will know better. But here's the knockdown benefits that emerge. If that farm turns back into forest, it can't do so without pulling carbon down. If that carbon comes down, it's not going to be anything other than a greater sponge, which means that the groundwater will either both be pure as well as it will be regenerated. This is also adaptation, this is mitigation on climate change, this is jobs. Now, there's still another benefit, and that benefit is peace. Everybody imagines that money is the benefit that you give. I'm saying that regional peace can come about if people are well fed, they're well respected, they're owners of their land, and there are other people who want to come to your house and say, how beautiful is this? Your self-esteem goes up and your culture comes back. Yes. So it's possible for us to do this, but it needs somebody. It's not a question of belling the cat. It needs somebody with the vision to take on those people who would kill the golden goose.
Check. Is
I know. So there we are. This is the situation, Kamal. We can do this, Ravi. I see large organizations like the WWF and large organizations like FES or A3 actually restoring and returning failed and marginal farms on the edges. Call it cutting edge conservation, if you will. Would you like to, somebody get a mic to him? I think we're all done. We can add in a little bit more. I'm sure, Blue, that this is your area.
I have a question.
Yeah. As soon as, yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. And I think very, very useful comments have already been made. It's just a huge potential. And I think it can transform the northeastern region particularly. And I think, it has been done. I don't know why Sunita is quiet about it. Pasang mentioned in the morning in his presentation the two villages, which have been transformed literally in terms of the community-based tourism, where all the income and revenue are going to the people. And Belinda's point, there are other things. Reference has already been made to rhododendrons, and these people are not coming there for for tigers and all that. And most of our landscapes, I have been pointing out for a number of years, actually lack landscapes. We have beautiful landscapes in all types of environments where there are other things, and so people are coming for birds and all that. So basically, we have huge potential. There are successful models. We are actually working on additional models incorporating, I think, what our speaker mentioned on architecture, the work in Seppi village, the planning and all that. I think they all has to be put together, and I think this has been a recurrent theme throughout the morning. We have to learn from each other, and I'll be talking a little bit more about how to bring all these things together in my comments later on.
Yeah, please.
There's another thing here where there's a great opportunity for some architect or a group of architects to come and help. What's happening, and you really have to appreciate this, is the villagers. In my village, when I first went there in 1971 or 72, people were starving, there was malnutrition, and now they're really quite well off. It's all because of tourism, but they don't want to live in mud houses with handmade tiled roofs, because they leak, and they're hot, they're cold, snakes can get in, etc. We need to help communities such as that to be able to still build. Some people may think what I'm saying is wrong, but can still build traditional houses, but which can be comfortably lived in. And I think if we could do that, the community would be hugely grateful for that. But it breaks my heart that in many places in central India, they're just tearing down beautiful old buildings, and they don't even, anyway.
Just to respond to that, I know we can't wait for lunch, all of us. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in New York, and I'm part of a group, New Foundation, which brings together artists, architects, and conservationists together to really plan for some of the things we are talking about: local architecture, community-based tourism, and it is happening. And you're absolutely right, we need more and more people coming in and joining the effort.
So Sunita, you should have the last word. What we've discussed here is essentially community upliftment whose byproduct is biodiversity enhancement, fresh water, fresh air, blue skies. Sunita, yours the last word, and then we can close the session.
No, this is actually, keeping in mind the panel that we had. We have more of individuals and entrepreneurs here, like Yeah, and they are so innovative. That's what I got to know from their from interacting with them. One thing I wanted to know, maybe Belinda would be able to answer this, is we always talk about policy, yeah, and regulations, and like you've so much experience, how important is a national policy, important in regulating all these? Is it important? Is it not important? Or can we just be innovative all the time? Or how should that policy interface come in? Do you think if the Indian policy is strong enough as of now? How is its implementation? So a little bit on policy, if you could, yeah.
But very briefly, policy is everything. And it's extremely difficult to change policy, as I'm sure most people in this room would know. So, which was why at these recent meetings where Raghu and I were completely, well, practically on the same page, we were trying to tell people, find tourism investors and concentrate on areas outside protected areas, because then you're not strangled by the existing policies. Policies can be changed and people can lobby for change, but it might take a very long time and for very strange reasons.
So, thank you
I
so
won't
much.
say any last words. Anybody? Good. Lunch it is. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bittu, Sunita, and the other panelists for the great session.